I'm going to sip my tea, Kermit the Frog style.
You are quite all right. Don't I ain't mad at you, brother. I ain't mad at you. Just tell me when the red light is on.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
What up, y'all? It's your man D-Real, the Black Panther stalking the urban jungle, vibrating with D, bringing you another podcast of Be Real with D-Real. I'm that D-Real. What's cracking? Today is October 17th, 2020, but that's not what I want to talk about this morning. Yesterday, October 16th, and I know I marked it wrong in my description. It's the 25th. Not the 24th anniversary of the Million Man March. Just some little factoids I hit you with. It was organized by, of course, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, as well as Dr. Benjamin Chavis Jr. and the National African American Leadership Conference. Couple things I did not know, though, that there was a dispute about the number of people who were assembled for the Million Man March. Now, the National Park Service originally stated that there were only 400,000 black men in attendance, but we wasn't feeling that. So ABC Television paid Boston University to do their own survey, and they said that there were 837,000 people at the Million Man March, which is a huge difference than 400,000. My guests this afternoon are my man, well, there's one of them right there, my man Jamon Morgan. How you doing, bruh? You might have your sound on. You might not. I'm not sure. But peace. And my other guest, of course, is my man Kokayi Nosakhere, and his perspective is unique in being that he was an attendee of the Million Man March way back in 1995. So I'm gonna stop doing all the talking, and I'm gonna let these brothers open up their mouth and speak a little bit. So, Kokayi.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Shukran.
Walaikum salam, brother. You know what my first burning question is to ask you about the Million Man March?
What?
And it's not what you think.
Okay. You usually have curveballs.
What was the weather like?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I gotta go into my memory if I'm gonna be authentic. We left New York City at 2 o'clock in the morning because we was partying. It was Sunday night. We were partying. We were in DC. And when we came out, we learned that Prince had dropped a new song, Next Time We March. And they were marching literally in the streets. So I don't remember there being any rain, and it was dark. Once we got back to Baltimore, because I made a mistake. My father fact-checked me. I said Boston because I remember Red Brick. He said, baby, it was Baltimore. We sent you to Baltimore. I was like, okay, all right.
Okay.
Right? We showered, got back into and no, it was clear. When we heard the Elan, it was clear. So the weather was sunny from about 11 to about 4 o'clock. And then it started getting cool because it was DC. But it was pretty much okay. We didn't really feel any chill because, when you get that many black folk together, it brings heat. Now, that's an old cultural saying, bring heat.
Right.
Forgive me for backtracking just a little bit on them numbers. I do remember having this discussion with the reporter. The Clinton administration did a flyover, and they said 1.87 million. That was on C-SPAN, okay? So I know that they have downgraded that number since then, because the 400,000, you are correct. When they first said that, we was all like, dude, there was more than 500,000 people there. Okay, come on, man.
Exactly.
There was way more than 500,000 people there.
Right.
But I'm of the understanding that there was about 850,000 of us who piped ourselves in, and then the rest was DC, Chocolate City, that found out the march was going on because of something called Black Entertainment Television back before Viacom had it, and it was actually black.
Right.
Right, and they poured out, and because we couldn't remember the people coming in from the street, and we just knew that they were from there. Okay, you kind of got the impression it was DMV, and if you didn't know it, if you don't know what I mean by DMV, then just let that be. Hit me up.
Chocolate City.
That's what's up. Yo, but my man Jamon got a question for you as well. Okay, I know you like the baby of the bunch in reference to the group assembled here today, but you was alive, so I would like to know, where was you at and what was you doing thereabouts around October 16th, 1995?
In 1995, October 16th, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was so far away from the movement mentally and spiritually. I was so wrapped up into doing all kind of stuff that I had no business doing, man. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But I'm gonna tell you this though, man. In Atlanta around that time though, the energy, I don't know what, but the energy from you can feel the energy from DC in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? In them streets in Atlanta, you could feel that energy, man. You know what I'm saying? It was pretty serious. Pretty serious.
Okay.
I had no clue on it. I was like, man, I don't know what are they marching for, where they marching from or what, you know what I mean? But I was removed, my brother.
Okay. And 100% transparency, October 16, 1995. Yes, the movement was the farthest thing from my mind too. But I was starting to marinate, you know what I mean? Because there were events that were going on, locally and throughout the country that just made me start, examining my existence, as a Black man. And I tell you another thing that I learned in 1995 was about absolute and relative poverty. And poverty was one of the issues that was, in the Black community being addressed at the Million Man March. Now, here's what absolute and relative poverty are. Absolute poverty is just like what the hell it sounds like. Absolutely broke. You ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. You are broke. Absolute poverty. Now, relative poverty, and the more important one is the one we need to think about, is you are not able to meet the bare minimum, i.e. at like a living wage, in order to exist, in order to survive. You how's the saying go? You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
No, you ain't got the money to rob.
You one paycheck away from the poorhouse. That is relative poverty.
Wow, that's amazing.
You got enough to pay your bills, and that's it. So you gotta sit for the other 28 days and hope to God that you make it through that month to the next month. And that is relative poverty, and that is the type of poverty that the vast majority of our community experiences.
Yeah, so my question, my brother, after that, oh my God, is how many other levels of poverty do they have? I mean, I got a problem with us.
Do we really need to get into that right now?
No. I'm just amazed that they got that they got levels of poverty. What is this, Dante's Inferno? Okay, look, if you po, man. That's where we really at.
Yeah,
man.
but being poor and not having nothing and being poor and having something, but it don't matter that you have it because it doesn't do anything for you. Which one is worse?
Okay, so one,
Dang.
I'm going to refer back to our grandfathers, ours, and maybe some people who are paying attention to great-grandfathers' arguments in this thing called the Great Depression. Okay. Laissez-faire capitalism does not work. It turns into hyper-mercantilism. If the rich people are not forced to reallocate their income in the forms of social services, universities, libraries, parades, parties, business investments, if they do not circulate the money, then it really doesn't matter. It's just us existing and then them having all the money. Then we're playing with what the definition of the middle class is. So I'm going to say that poverty is poverty, and it's purposefully being implemented by policies on the individual level and systemic level, like redlining. Redlining was a practice that kept people in poverty, and it wasn't just Black people. We're going to go into the pure history. Redlining occurred against Jewish people, Italian people. If you were newly immigrant from Poland and you were in Chicago, there's this thing called K-Town. Okay, hello? There's a whole section in Chicago for nothing but Polish people. How did that come into being?
And Cicero, let's not forget Cicero.
Oh, yes. Okay, the rich people do it to this day, where they put themselves in elite gated environments, communities. So the idea that this is happening through happenstance or through morality or through the survival of the fittest is an idea that we're going to have to throw away if we want to have a real serious conversation about poverty. In hyper-mercantilism, which is where you have the uber rich, and then you do have people who have to be poor because the money is not circulating. Right. Otherwise, they would have access to it. Because if it gets hoarded up here, it doesn't circulate for them to be able to use. So somebody like Henry Ford, who said his minimum wage at his factory was whatever it took, inflation or not, for a worker to be able to afford his most basic product. If it was that, that's what the amount was. That was minimum wage. Okay, that's a lot closer to equity as a standard than anything that we hear on the news channels at the present moment. And I'm still just flabbergasted that we have different depths to hell, different.
Well, I mean, well, let's look at it logically. Am I worse off than the guy on the corner with the sign?
But that's
no, probably not. I'm probably not worse off as him, but that's why it's called relative. It's relative to my situation. There's no financial growth for me, or I can't earn or procure enough to compete on a level with someone else that is the same financial caliber as me, but is privy to privilege.
But that's the Chicago School of Economics. You got to have already a mature capitalistic system where resources as well as currency are flowing, i.e. the Great Depression, before you can do what you're saying and say that there's any kind of moral relativeness to poverty. Everybody's got to have something to share. If they do not have something to share, then the poverty becomes something that's a political tool. And now we need to start talking about communism and socialism as far as systems of flow and not what poverty is, because if we use the 2020 definition, we're going to be going around in a circle trying to justify our own oppression.
Okay, let me ask you a question, both of y'all brothers, man. Does any of that have anything to do with mindset? Like the fact that the guy's on the corner, then the fact that I don't have enough to pay my bills to the, does any of that have anything to do with mindset?
Okay.
Some of it,
yes. Yes. Okay. Because if you have the right mindset as well as a support group, because the difference between trauma and not having trauma is a support group. Trauma basically means you cannot cope. Intergenerational trauma means that you can't cope because your mama never learned how to cope and your great-grandma never learned how to cope. And so they pass down not knowing how to cope with the circumstances. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So if you have a support group, then you can do a Mary McLeod Bethune, right? Because there was Mr. Cookman there to support, support. And you can start a resource stream. What do I mean by that? She took groceries, turned them into pies, sold the pies to white folk. That turned it into currency that she then went and got more ingredients to make pies.
Right.
That was how she was able to pull out of that. Or you get a garden and you start a resource stream that you can turn into income. Now, if
Right.
you are in absolute poverty, like Daryl started off with, and you don't have any seeds, then good God Almighty, how is that mental? There's nothing, you got nothing to work with.
Right. So like you ain't got no bootstraps to pull up. Like that.
Right.
Like,
You ain't got no boots, you ain't got no leather, you ain't got no leaves.
You ain't even got no socks.
You're one of them children in the cage at the border.
That's
you
real.
don't have the means.
That's real. That's real.
Now, as far as, let me just kind of slide back towards, this Million Man March thing. I mean, we get back into poverty if you want to later. But what I also want to talk about is what was what was the agenda of the Million Man March? And two-part question: what was the agenda, and how do you feel like that agenda is being implemented currently, if at all?
Hey, wonderful, fantastic. Two questions. The agenda primary goal was to inspire a day of conflict resolution, squash the beef, atonement, at one mint, how to create unity by slowly and systematically addressing the triggers that we have when we interact with each other. And so once a year, we're supposed to go to each other, around to all your relationships, and say, is there anything that you haven't said this year that you want to like resolve so that we can put that behind us and move forward in more friendliness, in more loving, in more grace with each other? Okay. That was the first part. The second part was then to inspire service between each other to the point where we start addressing the economic needs and the psychological and emotional needs that are lacking in our community. So we're supposed to return back to our community and make it a better place. Now, as far as those who have sustained that, I do remember that there were 16 of us who flew from Alaska to the Million Man March. Cal Williams, Elder Cal Williams was one of them. He was there with me. And I would have to say that between Cal and myself, we have stayed true to our commitment to go back to our community and make it a better place. I mean, I don't think the Elder has ever stopped not producing a cultural event of some kind every 3 months or so. You're going to have an opportunity to hear a song based in our struggle, stories based in our struggle, history based in our struggle, artifacts from Anchorage, Alaska, personalities. He's constantly doing his job to act like a hero and keep the story of how we have sustained ourselves in Alaska before us. Myself, I think that it's almost self-explanatory. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been in the national article. Raised the minimum wage in Alaska 3 times, got weed legalized, went 12 years without losing a political campaign that I worked on, and then got an award with the FBI. My dad was laughing about this, for the Community Leadership Award for doing the Stop the Violence. And he said, per your storyline, you couldn't take a picture with nobody. I was like, yes, I can receive the award, but I couldn't be seen with you. Wait a minute, I can't. We cannot have this on the storyline. No.
Wow.
So those who were strong enough or who were already active before the Million Man March, I don't think that there was any additional activation of persons, because you had to self-select in order to go to the Million Man March. And those who were on the track in order to make great contributions to the community were on the track to do that. Now, the state of manhood has deteriorated in the last 25 years because the supports have been completely eradicated.
Wow.
For how?
I just said, wow.
Yeah. I distinctly remember when George Floyd got publicly murdered. We black men didn't really do anything with each other. We didn't reach out and check in and fortify and say that there needs to be a united front of some kind. There was a lot of gnashing and of teeth, but it was all internal. It was like an expectation from society that we carry that burden all by ourselves and not lash out on anybody, not share the pain or the sadness or the depression or the fear. We were supposed to take it because it was a matter of survival, or certain, like the tenacity was to be assumed, the resiliency was to be assumed, as if watching yourself be murdered for 8 minutes and 49 seconds was normal for us. And I had lots of issues with that. I mean, since George Floyd's murder, and I think I'm pretty well supported, I've had 3 nightmares of police shooting me in the face. That's serious.
Question.
Okay.
Question. I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
Real quick question, because what you're talking about is trauma.
Yes.
And how do you move past that type of drama? Because I've spoken to people before who say things similar and have had similar experiences. How do you move past? You said a support system. Is a support system something that helps you move past that trauma? And what does your support system look like?
Well, I had to add on to my support system. I had to upgrade my support system. And so now I'm in a book group with 2 BIPOC therapists. And to hear that they're going through similar stuff, okay, has been extremely beneficial. Now, when we start talking about going to group sessions or therapy in the Black community, now we're starting to talk about a taboo subject. The fact that we have to have different people at different levels in our community who can hold different traumas, different life experiences, different perspectives, is something that we're going to need to add on and create. What is it that we've only really had 60 years of Black psychologists? That this isn't something that's been in existence forever. We had to grow people up who could talk about racism and how to be tenacious in the face of racism without internalizing any hatred or fear towards white people. And that becomes the thing, because it's watching our white friends and family not struggle with it, not deal with it, believe that they're completely distant from it. That's the part that makes it systemically traumatizing. When you have to convince people that are supposedly paying attention or spending the exact same time with you on this planet of what your experience is, because it's that far from them, because they become the trigger when that story is told. They become Derek Chauvin. They become the person who's holding the cell phone and watching and not able to do anything because they're in fear, freeze, and flight. They're the ones who don't want any kind of reaction from the Black community because they're terrified of white people too. And as long as Black people just absorb the pain and die peacefully, everything's going to be okay in America in their mind. And the fact that we don't want to keep going through those experiences, that we know that they can stop, that we can separate ourselves, that we can isolate in some way, make Wakanda, create those Wakanda spaces where we don't have to deal with race, racism, or whiteness, and we can just deal with our regular, ordinary trauma. I heard one time that an elder and forgive me for who I usually can quote, but when an elder said that the highest vision, dream that he has for Black people in America is something called mundanity. That
Wow.
when we walk down the street, all we're really doing is walking down the street. We are not managing the perspectives of the white people around us and their reactions.
It's
when we
funny
go
you
to,
should. It's funny you
oh,
should say that, Kokayi, because when I served 6 years, 6 months, and 21 days in the United States Navy,
wow,
and part of that journey was a trip to Africa, and I got the opportunity to go to Mombasa, Kenya, and
whoa,
and two things I will tell you off the bat: Africa is not a place filled with emaciated people with flies on their eyeballs. That is not what Africa is. I don't know why anytime anybody mentions Africa, that's what pops to mind. A white man swinging through the trees and all of this type of foods. No, it's a city. It's a city just like any other city. The only difference is you don't have that. I don't know. I guess it's like, it doesn't, I don't know what the term is, but I call it natural Black people instinct, where you kind of like are naturally on alert. It's that feeling you get when you're driving in the car and the lights get behind you, and it's that feeling in your stomach. You don't have that.
So you feel it home there.
Because you're not worried about it, because people who look like you don't do that type of stuff to you. And I've always told people, if you're going to be a police officer, part of being a police officer is being a person. And being a person means you got to interact with the community that you are a part of. You driving by in a cruiser and scowling at me in my neighborhood where I feel comfortable, and you're the outsider, and you're creating this sense of alienation because you're quote unquote the authority. Get out of your car and talk to me. I remember when they used to have a program, Officer Friendly, where Officer Friendly would come to the motherfucking school and bring the crayons and the coloring books and tell you fun stories about how cool police are and all of that type of thing. Gone.
yeah,
That does not exist anymore. And it's not, and the police aren't trying to bridge that gap. If you saying you serve and protect me, do that. Serving me is knowing who I am. Who am I? Who is this person with this Black skin that you drive by every day? Do you know what they do? Do you know who they are? Do you know what they're about? Or do you just assume they're all criminals to be shot and or jailed?
True. Right.
I can't know who you are if I don't speak to you. I can't know who you are if I get to know you. I can see you from outside my car doing stuff, but that doesn't explain to you. Like I tell people all the time, perspective is everything. What you think you see me doing may not be what you think you see me doing.
See, that's what the police department is lacking this nationwide, man. There's no social interaction or programs within the department that promote social interaction in the communities that they police, man. That's what's there. It seems like that's a no-brainer, but I don't know. You know what I mean? It's
even here in Anchorage, you can go have coffee with the police.
I've done that.
Okay, and what did you get out of that?
What I got was that they had just recruited some former military. They were young, that they were green, and they just needed guidance. These were not bad people. They got on, they were on the force for the right reason. They wanted to help people, and the politics was getting in the way of them being seen as human beings. They were frustrated with that piece. Normal stuff.
So this is what I was thinking. So with the badge and with the age-old policy that this badge represents, when you become a police officer, it seems like they fall up under a certain spirit. I don't want to get spiritual on here, but it seems like they fall up under a certain spirit of this badge that's behind the badge. Now they might, you just said, they might not be bad people, but once they put that uniform and that badge on, it seems like another spirit comes over, you know what I'm saying, comes over certain aspect. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
They start that what my mama said they start smelling themselves.
Yeah.
That what my mama called it. She said they start smelling themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not far off.
Right.
So Resma Minicam, okay, second foremost intergenerational trauma expert in the country. I believe Dr. Joy DeGury in Portland is the foremost because she did post-traumatic slave syndrome. So she did the diagnostics, okay? Here's the therapy. Jamon, you are so close. Okay, so what happens is they start shift with ritual. Everybody's in the locker room. You change from your regular clothes into your police uniform. Then you go to the morning briefing. The morning briefing sets your mentality for the day, and you know what your quota, you know what your route, you know what you're in. When you get off your shift, there is no closing ritual. You stay on. You put on your clothes. I mean, you take your clothes off, you put on the other clothes, you laugh, you drink, you have a drink with your friend, and then you go home and you beat up and let all that dirty pain out on your family and your friends. Or you continue drinking, okay? And it's a maladaptive coping skills, but there isn't a closing ritual. So you're right. There was a spirit put on them, and then no spirit taken off of them. And it happens continuously. So Resma Minicam really just suggests have a closing ritual that closes that day and that part of your life so you don't take that with you when you're done and it doesn't become your entire identity.
Wow.
Yeah, we have solutions. No different than what Daryl was saying. Just get out there and interact with the community as the community. And we keep saying, how hard is this? Well, when you get people who are broken and you give them a badge and authority, what comes out? More brokenness.
The brokenness, man. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. Facts. Speaking of facts, interesting fact, were we, because I know Kokayi during the Million Man March, of course you were in Washington. So I don't know if you were aware, of something that was going on called a day of absence?
No, that means that the rest of the community was supposed to not be present. You would do all your shopping. And this is a Dr. King idea. Minister Farrakhan loves the Dr. King boycott for Christmas, because that was a Dr. King idea too. I thought it was I thought it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but no, it was Dr. King who came up with the idea of distribute the pain, redistribute the pain. And then on major shopping days, do not be present. And our absence is what shows, quote unquote, pricks the consciousness, not our presence. See, we keep participating in our own oppression. Then the oppressor says you like it. That's a Zora Neale Hurston thing. If you do not, what was it? What did she say? If you do not tell them about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it.
Right. So it's more. So that means it's more than just withholding $1. It's a psychological thing too for us.
Well, it's also too. It's supposed to also be a day of introspection, where we do a lot of self-examination and assessments of ourselves and decide where we need to move forward from there. And this is the part that I have issue with, is sort of kind of like what Kokayi was saying about we begin the ritual of coming together and organizing and saying, this is what we want to do and this is how we're going to do it, and then no execution. Case in point, the blackout back in July. Okay, we blacked out beautifully. We blacked out beautifully, and right there, we captured the attention of a nation. What did we do with it?
Nothing.
We didn't do a damn thing with that attention. We had a captive audience. That was the time to start talking about reparations, if that's what you wanted to do. That was the time to start talking about reforming the judicial system, if that's what you wanted to do. That was the time to openly and actively address police violence towards minorities. But instead, what happened? What happened with that?
What happened is they waited for Ice Cube to do that work, and then they want to hate against Ice Cube.
Don't get me started on that one. Now, I done just got done arguing with 9/11 people about what Ice Cube is and isn't doing. Okay, and there's a very plain and simple way to sum it up. Democrats have Democratic solutions. Republicans have Republican solutions.
Go ahead.
And I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. As a centrist, the Republican nor the Democrat solution work for me personally. As a black man in America, it don't work for me. So what Mr. Jackson came up with was this is what black people want. Black people want this, and this. I don't give a damn what party you are. If you can do this for black people, let's roll. Democrats' response? We'll address it after the election. Republicans' response? Okay, we gonna put some money on that. We gonna put some money on that. Now, on the streets where I was raised, money talks, everything else does you know what. So you can call O'Shea a sellout or whatever you want to do, but O'Shea said, I'm taking matters into my hands, and this is what I want to do. And if y'all want to roll with this, come roll with it. If you don't. But don't call me no sellout because you scared to do something. The only caveat I have about it is the timing. That's it. Everything else is on point. Right now ain't the time to break that out. You should have broke that shit out in June. You know what I'm saying? And told everybody about that before they went on that blackout and had all that energy and all that momentum and all of that. Okay, everybody ain't strategic like me. Okay, I get that. Okay, but that's when that should have happened, Mr. Jackson. Okay, you should have been talking about that way before October.
Right. Well, okay. To Ice Cube's defense, okay, he was the only one that started jumping up and down on Twitter. Him and Dave Chappelle were the only two that actually responded from the celebrity level after George Floyd, and so he had to give him a couple of months in order to come up with a way to communicate that agenda. We're going to shorten the tide because it's too much like Newt Gingrich back in the day. I can't go with it. I mean, I'm with you, but I like the principles and the way that he's trying to move. And in the grand tradition of Black nationalism, he is willing to sit down with the open enemy in order to have a discussion about how to divvy up the situation. So this is kind of like a throwback to a conversation we had a couple of months back too, when it came out of not effing around committee, and how you can raise attention, but you don't then walk through the door. Ice Cube is walking through the door that's currently available. And to sit there and say that the Democratic Party is better when we know Biden is a centrist Republican.
Come on, man.
Okay.
Hey.
It's not. It's not. Okay?
You can't even fix your mouth to say any of that, man.
they seriously believe that there's something better going on. And
the last 47 years of his political career should tell you everything you need to know about that. And you coming to a town hall and confessing that you felt like the 3-strike shit was wrong does not make up for the hundreds of thousands of black men who are still sitting in jail today because of some old humbug ass rule that y'all came up with. He had 2 strikes and then got a damn traffic violation. Now he's in jail for 17 years.
Man, if you would just reread that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, we just reread the 13th Amendment and figure out the loophole that they gave themselves.
I understand that prisoners for all intents and purposes are slaves. They are slaves.
Yes.
They are chattel
Yes.
slaves.
Yes.
It's written in the 13th Amendment that way.
Yes. And then the cities, what gets me is the cities will do contracts with people and pimp out their prison labor. And then you have all these people who go along with this, who don't sit there and say, well, maybe there's something wrong, or maybe we shouldn't do this, or maybe I'm not going to participate in this, but I'm going to go along with evil. Just go along with it. And then I want you to treat me as if I'm not. See, that's part of the reason why I don't have a church, because you wouldn't be allowed in my congregation. You wouldn't be allowed.
Make me think about that movie, Vampire in Brooklyn, with Eddie Murphy. Evil is good.
See?
And that's the kind of mentality that's being kicked, man. Evil is good. And people just they soak it up, man, and don't realize, okay, dude, what you're calling right ain't right. That's just evil. You can't do that. You can't say that to human beings. I was talking to somebody yesterday. No, not yesterday. Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. And I hope they listening. I hope you listening. I hope you listening. Okay? I ain't gonna say my man's name, but basically, this was a black man who I was having a conversation about the president and the remark he made about countries being shithole countries.
Yes.
This black man, this African American human being's response was, they are shithole countries. Would
Get out of
you
here.
live there? Would you live there?
Wow.
Are you shitting me? That is not the point. That is not the crux, but that's what they got out of it. And they talk about folks being programmed by far left stuff. That's some far right programming if I ever heard it.
Miseducation of the Negro. Carter G. Woodson. He had 2 PhDs.
Bruh.
Okay.
Bruh.
2 of
I'm
them.
telling you, in 2000, I started picking up everything that I could read and started reading it, and my whole perspective about what this country is predicated upon changed dramatically. You know what I'm saying? If I could, and I hate saying this, if I could take back serving in the military, I would. Okay? Because of what I now realize that this country represents. That ain't no diss to anybody who's a veteran or anything like that. But you don't see what I see, apparently. Because it to me is, black man ain't got no reason to be in the military. None whatsoever. None, man.
See,
I mean, I got a lot of free travel out of it. I'll give it that. You know what I'm saying? I got to see Africa. I got to see Singapore. I got to see Australia. I got to see all the Far East. You know what I'm saying? So cool. All right. Thanks for the trip, America.
Bro, I was done in high school when I was reading in the history book of how our soldiers came back from World War II, and the very thing that they were fighting in Nazi Germany, the white soldiers implemented against them in the United States of America. And I had a hard time. I just couldn't do that, and I couldn't do the police, because it just felt like I was upholding my own oppression. Now, when it comes down to them,
Kokayi, I got a question. I mean, cut you off. I got a question.
Whoa.
What do you say, brother? What do you say to people who say things to you like, that doesn't have anything to do with me. I've never been a slave and I've never owned a slave. So why should I care?
It's in your DNA.
Okay, that's when Malcolm starts jumping up and down in my head. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, sold a bill of goods that doesn't mean anything.
And I don't understand that, bro. I don't understand how people can't see evil for what it is. Wasn't it Maya Angelou that said, when somebody tells you what or shows you what they are, believe them?
Okay, but we're on generation 12 now. If we're gonna use Maya Angelou, we're on generation 12, and cats are still trying to integrate into this evil ass system. When you see white people trying to leave it now, okay, come on, man. This is the greatest country on the planet. It's a third world country now. This isn't the greatest system on the planet. I mean, when you do, and I would challenge anybody, and we can have this conversation. We keep coming back to it, Daryl. I'm in agreement with you. When you go to our native friends and family, and you learn that Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a TP, and that he borrowed that all from them, and it doesn't even have cosmetology in it. Self-actualization is supposed to be at the top, and that's through spiritual union. Now, if you don't have connection to the earth, which is the bottom of the TP, and I don't need to be going into that kind of science, then nothing that they're going to be saying is going to work. You can't deal with the food, clothing, and shelter, because all food, clothing, and shelter comes from the earthly environment. But if you see yourself as separate from it, then you're never going to reach the self-actualization of being God live and in person. But I'm going to let that go, okay? Because
yes,
I'm in agreement with you. When we start seeing doing the education, okay, the critique, going back to the poverty, when Upton Sinclair, socialist, okay, was extremely influential, Great Depression, he got to the point where he was having conversations with FDR in the White House because he was on the verge of becoming the governor of California with a 60-page plan called the EPIC plan, EPIC, in poverty in California. How is he going to do that? A partnership between the farmers and the community. It's called a co-op.
Wow.
Okay. And they had 100, he was going to put like 140, 139 of these co-ops together. And they were going to be an agricultural force that fed California without having to feed anybody else. And in that way, churn the wheel of economics to where there is no poverty. Why? We're sharing the resources. We're sharing our talents. We're bartering, and it's not getting sucked away from us through unfair taxation and the hypocrisy of national contracts, to where it's okay for them to have a monopoly, but not okay for us to have a monopoly. So I think a re-education program, where did I hear that from? Wasn't it this little guy from Georgia? His name was Elijah Muhammad, who said that we needed to be completely re-educated, that we weren't fit for self, we couldn't take care of ourselves anymore, and that we needed to return to the point where we could take care of ourselves. And then there was this guy named John Henry Clark, whose only critique of the civil rights movement was that when Dr. King was killed, we weren't able to make the coffin for him or his suit. We couldn't cut the flowers from our garden to put on the wreath for his funeral. That it wasn't our sound system, and we couldn't produce that sound system. That it wasn't our mule that carried him. That we didn't produce any of the cars that contributed. That it wasn't our TV station that broadcast his funeral. We didn't have those cameras. We didn't know how to make those cameras. So as long as we were in a position of complete dependence, absolute dependency instead of relative dependency.
You want me to put it down
Very
here?
nicely done, sir. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. Well, this has been lively. I told you we were going to have a grand old time, didn't I? Jamon, you still there, boss?
Okay. We could be transitioning from the car to the house, man.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll start with you, because I know you have some epic closing statements, sir. Now, the question I will want to close with is, again, a two-part question. What inspired you the most about the Million Man March, and how have you grown as a Black man from the experience?
What inspired me the most about the Million Man March was the fact that Minister Farrakhan chose to speak last. So everyone well, a lot of people that hated against him ended up speaking that day. A lot of the people who fought him ended up speaking that day when we showed up. And before any man spoke that day, all the women that wanted to speak were up there and spoke. Dorothy Height was there. She spoke. I believe Coretta was there. She spoke. Rosa Parks was there. She spoke. Anybody and everybody that wanted to speak who had national platform spoke before Minister Farrakhan. So I think that was the most inspiring thing. And then how I've grown is, and literally this is in part because of the support network and then the example. I have chosen not to bend. I have chosen not to compromise who and what I am and what I see. And I'd rather suffer physically deprivation for calling it out than go along with the evil like we've been talking about. And so for 65 years straight, since he was 22 years old, ups and downs, and he went through tragedy, and they have attempted to kill him forever. Minister Farrakhan has stood there and said, this is the truth that I have seen. This is the truth that I'm experiencing, and I'm going to speak it. And if it scares you for me to be aware of my condition, then you're scared. Deal with that. I am not going to act like an assimilated Negro. There was it, Mr. James Baldwin, I'm not your Negro. I'm not going to act like that. I'm going to act like an original man. And if it hurts you, it hurts you. I mean, yeah, to the point. I mean, I so don't do the system to the point where, bro, I send my child support directly to my child and ex-wife. I just, let's repair that relationship and let's do that. I do not do it through the system. I send it directly to her. Then we'll figure it out later on. They can do that when I'm dead, but I ain't playing around with this damn system. If we made a baby outside of court, court wasn't there for us to make this damn baby. That's for us to grow up with and us to figure out our systems and our community and our family. I don't need you to tell me how to be a daddy. We're going to fight on that front. I'll take care of it.
Okay. So, Jamon, my brother, same question. What inspired you most about the Million Man March, and how have you grown as a Black man from the experience?
I'm gonna tell you what. You said something earlier when you started asking. When you asked where were we during that time, man. I'm gonna tell you that put me on a hunt for God, man. It put me on a hunt for spirituality, man. It really put me on a hunt because, like I said, I was in Atlanta at that time, and I was into the Nation of Islam. I had my Quran. I was going to the mosque and everything, man. It just put me on a hunt for God around that time. It was just that whole period of time right there. And I didn't really know, like I said, I didn't know what it was really about, you know, but I think it was just the aura that was in the air that said, man, not only learn about yourself, but really, man, you know what I'm saying, learn about God, man, learn, you know what I'm saying, learn about your spirituality, man, you know, so it just put me on a hunt, man. All the brothers in the streets, man, even if they didn't go, you know what I'm saying, all the brothers that was in the streets in Atlanta, man, it was just like, it was like a spiritual movement, man, to be honest with you at that time. You had Dr. Malachi Z. York, the Nawabu Nation, all that stuff was down there, man, you know, and, you know, it put me on a spiritual hunt, man, for real. That whole moment, the time right there out of eternity put me on a spiritual hunt, man, for real. So yeah, that's what I can say. Definitely.
Okay. All right. Speaking personally, I became inspired just seeing that many Black men together in one place, and nobody was berating anybody. Nobody was physically harming anybody. You know what I'm saying? And just from what I could see, it looked like a genuine air of mutual respect and love and happiness. And the epiphany I had was, damn, if we can all get together 1 million strong in one place like that and not hurt and not kill and not disrespect each other, what could we do if we decided?
Yeah.
to do that daily.
Yeah.
My mission with this and everything else I do is to bring people who look like me together under one banner, whatever that banner is called, whatever, if it means making Jamon a better Jamon, Kokayi a better Kokayi, D-Real a better D-Real, if we could get together and do that,
Yes,
let's
sir.
get together and do that. Whatever
Yes,
form
sir.
that takes. Whatever form that
Collectively,
takes.
That's all our purpose. All our purpose in some shape, form, or fashion to be trying to help people become better people, man. For real. Some part of that mission.
True.
So let's make a pact now.
Ha!
Okay? And decide willfully to do that together.
All right. See you for Kwanzaa.
Hey. You know
We'll be on Zoom together.
I will
Yeah.
I will call you a couple of days before. and we will put that together, bro. We will put
Yes,
that
sir.
together for real. That's just more shit for me to do on Kwanzaa. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, I got the thing where I got a big jar, and whenever something nice happens, or to anybody in the family, we write it down and we put it in the jar, and it's already like a bunch. And then on Kwanzaa, we pull that jar open when we read about all of the wonderful blessings that our family has
Okay,
had.
I'm
So you
using
can't say life wasn't good for you. Life wasn't good to you. Look at the positive. Look at the upbeat. Look at what's possible, not what ain't.
The bottle of possibility.
Right.
I'm on it. That's awesome.
Somebody once told me that
Bottle of
when
possibility.
you do the best that you can, and when you do what is possible, you are achieving the impossible.
Because you put M and possible together. I am okay.
I'm possible.
That's pretty good.
That's
there.
the poet.
And you know what? That is
the
best. That is the best possible note I can end this podcast on. Kokayi, Jamon, brothers, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all.
Love you too.
And keep Kwanzaa reserved, cause we doing this again.
Yes.
On Kwanzaa.
Yes, sir.
But yo. This has been Be Real with D-Real for October 17th, 2020. I'll be back next week with another prolific topic. Until then, y'all be good and be good to each other. Peace.